Folks, we're back. I wouldn't really call this another episode of DramaQuest, but I guess it's like a news update, a sub episode, maybe part of a mini series. Today, I wanted to talk to you about a new EverQuest time-locked progression server coming out in January of 2025, January 1st, to be specific. So, obviously, Darkpaw launched Teak and Tormax this May. Teak, absolute gangbusters, huge hit, the most successful TLP server of all time so far. Tormax, abject failure, huge dud, as predicted by pretty much everybody. So here we are with that. But while these are while one of these is a super popular server, there are elements of it which people don't like, right? Some people really want that vanilla EQ feel, and they want a more vanilla feel than you can really even get from progression servers these days. There are people who just, they can't stand the revamped zones. They hate the fast EXP, the way grouping is so optimal and soloing or duoing is terrible. They hate chrono. They hate the massive AEPLs and third-party software that is abound on progression servers. And while I don't necessarily agree with all of those standpoints, I can't fault people for having that opinion. EverQuest TLP has been watered down over the years. It started out watered down. I would say it kind of hit its high point in terms of mechanical difficulty around Finnegal to Agnar timeframe. That was when Prathen seemed to be the guy at the top. He was running things. He had an interest in making things closer and closer to classic with each patch, and resisting the call to make things easier to reduce time sinks. Now, I'm not judging the merit of any of these things, right? Because the servers have been super successful since accessibility has been increased. And while many of us, myself included, have a ton of fun playing on these servers, it's hard to argue that some part of the spirit of EQ hasn't been lost as we walk down that road. And at the end of the day, I think it's important to have balance, right? It's important for there to be different avenues for different types of EverQuest players to find the experience that they're looking for. So when it comes to that, unfortunately, you're unlikely to get an experience that feels truly classic, that hard, arduous journey. You're unlikely to find that in the official TLP servers. But the guys over at TACP, everyone's mad at me right now. Everyone's like, oh, it's an emulator server. Yep, gotcha. Okay, so the guys over at TACP are doing their own time lock progression server. They're doing their own TLP, starting in Classic, January 1st, 2025. Why does it matter? Why should you trust this? Why should you consider it? Well, this is the oldest client that we're going to have access to, similar to what Quorum kind of was on day one of Project Quorum. But there are some critical differences, I would say, between this and Project Quorum. Project Quorum has added a ton of pseudo-custom content and has all sorts of, a maze of rules and things to puzzle over and frequent changes to those rules, blah, blah, blah. And TACP is going to be launching this progression server. It's going to be basically set up and then sort of, other than bugs, left alone. There's a play nice policy, like the old school play nice policy and all that, but I don't think that this is the sort of server where we're going to see frequent rule updates. Okay, so it's being run by Elraz and a handful of other folks who are assisting with it, and it's mostly a bunch of guys whose names you wouldn't really recognize at all, unless you played on TACP specifically. But they're people for whom there's not really any drama associated with them. There's not like any big news, right? And that's exactly what you want, because these are guys who for the last 10 years have kind of quietly worked on TACP and haven't rocked the boat. They haven't been trying to be the face of anything or be involved. They probably don't even want me, out here putting their names out, right? They're like much more Nilbog style in the background, working the server. They're trying to build the server that they wish existed. And for that reason, I'm pretty excited about this. Now, I'm obviously going to be busy on Teak still, but I think I'll dip my toes in the water with the TACP TLP when it comes out. So let's talk about it. It'll launch in Classic, and they've spent a ton. I mean, like about a year now, they've been working on this in secret. They put a ton of time into improving the accuracy of Classic and Kunark on TACP side. I don't think they pushed it to actual TACP branch yet, so no one has seen it. But they've got the original PAW, like the original PAW. They've got original Runny Eye. They've got original Chardock. All these pre-revamped zones, like 1.0, even the zones that were modified really early. They spent a ton of time eliminating all the erroneous drops, making sure mechanics were accurate. They got Trilogy era spell resists that have never been used on an emulator before put in. They've got accurate EXP, no longer any kind of EXP bugs like you might have experienced on other things, accurate era EXP. The only way that this server could be more close to 1999 would be if we were building it on if they were building it on a Trilogy client. So that is the only missing piece of the puzzle that is left. So for today's EverQuest player, this is as good as it could possibly get. The the Trilogy client has some DirectX issues, right, that prohibit it from being used right now. I mean, like, one day we might get there, but today it's not a reality. I think it's probably several years out before we see like a TLP that launches with the Trilogy client. But when we do see it, it's probably going to be some of these same guys who are working on it, because I think, talking to a few of them, that's kind of like the next thing in their sights. But when we're talking about the server, especially Velius through POP, we're talking about stuff that has 10 plus years of development time already baked into it. So extremely finely honed, close to perfect era accuracy for all that stuff. And then another year put into Classic and Kunark on top of that. And a lot of this uses original packet capture data from as far back as they can get. And if they couldn't get old school stuff, they were managing to scrape a ton of data from the official EQ Max server before it went down. And that hadn't been patched since like 2002. So we know that was incredibly accurate, high quality data that they were working with. This is going to be announced tomorrow, I think. Tomorrow at the time of recording is going to be like Monday, the 22nd of July. So they're still wrapping up some changes and tuning, but they're going to have the legacy stuff in. And when this reaches POP and Quorum is killed, then it's going to merge into the TACP server, which is going to ensure that there's a robust population forever. And then they're probably going to keep cycling them, depending on how this goes. Now, there's some big questions you might have, right? Legacy items, most of them will be in. Not sure if all of them will be in. Most people don't realize this, but there's actually like 60 legacy items. People are always just thinking about like Mana Stones, Lustrous Russet, Box Abu Kar, Guys, and Fungi Sticks, but there's a lot more than that. They are aiming to make things as absolutely accurate as possible, and there will be no quality of life additions, right? So you're going to get exactly how it felt, warts and all, back in the day. That means no mouse wheel zoom. For people who cannot handle that, it's not for you. But if that's something that you are able to do, if you're able to play in first person like you did when you were 10 years old, this is probably a good place for you to check out. I don't even think they're going to allow mods. If you build your own mods for mouse wheel zoom, it's going to be considered cheating potentially, or at least frowned upon. So we'll see where they go with that. The expectation, I think, is that there will be raid rotations pretty much out of the gate. Exactly how they'll be set up is, of course, not decided, but there will be raid rotations because TACP has had raid rotations for 9 years and there haven't been any real issues with it. So they expect that will continue just fine. We'll see how that goes with a classic launch and, 4 raid mobs and all that. But for right now, the plan is raid rotations. No instances. I said, hey, when I was talking to these guys, I was like, when Quorum launched, they had like 5,000 people on the first day, right? And to handle that influx of people, they made respawn timers in the early zones like 30 seconds or even less in some cases, so that people had stuff to kill. And personally, I liked that Secrets did that. I thought it was good, but a lot of people didn't like it. And that expanded all the way up to through the dungeons as the big glut of people leveled. And people had differing opinions on that. I said to these guys, hey, what's your plan for that? 2,000 people trying to kill mobs in GFA on day one. They said, well, we will not change anything. It will be exactly as it is intended to be in Classic. And if there's 2,000 people, we sort of expect that the problem will sort itself out because you'll get frustrated that you can't kill mobs and you'll just log out. And I said, wow, okay. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be the real deal. It's going to be the real deal. These aren't people who are going to bend because they get a bunch of whiny DMs or pings on Discord. They're not about making the player base happy. They are about producing the server that is as close to a classic to pop progression server with era level accuracy for each era as possible. So if you're an EQ purist, I can't really see a server that exists right now that would be better for you. Right. Now, January is going to be probably a good month for this to come out because where will Teak be? Teak will be in the middle of pop, pretty much the worst expansion for a TLP server. It's like 4 months long. It's super boring. A lot of people who are interested in classic TLPs are getting bored right around then, so they'll jump ship here potentially. I am pretty sure that Quorum will be in the tail end of its Kunark. People will be getting really stale on Quorum Kunark by that point. Velius will be coming out soon after that, so this will be an opportunity for people to try that. And we won't have a fresh TLP coming out until, I don't know, late May. So we have a pretty good window for this server to try to get its feet under it, attract a big population, and kind of see where the chips fall. But there's a few things they don't have, and that I think they're going to leave up to a vote before launch. They're going to have a poll where people can weigh in. Some of them are going to be pretty controversial. First, it's going to be box limit. You could have, I think they're going to have options for single box, 2 box, or 3 box. When I say single box, it means a single character. You will play one character, like P99 style. 2 box, 2 characters. 3 box, 3 characters. Some people get confused by the vernacular and they think 1 box means you have your main and then a box. But that's not what we're talking about here. So you'll be able to play 1, 2, or 3 characters based on the polling results here. If I was a betting man, I would bet on single box winning that polling. TACP is a 3 box server, if I recall correctly. But EQ purists have a real hard-on for single character. And with a booming population, I think that's really all you're going to need. So I would expect that to win the vote. And then there's the expansion timelines. Personally, I think they should just go era accurate and let them run however long they ran in reality back in the day. But they said they're looking at options like 4, 6, or 9 months per expansion, or maybe era accurate. And so people will have an opportunity to vote on that stuff. Now, nitty gritty details. Will we get patch era accuracy? I don't think so. So patch era accuracy means like you start in 1999 day 1, and then every month thereafter, you're implementing changes as they existed in the patch notes. Super arduous process. And I don't think that this is there yet, but future iterations of this, if they continue to do it in subsequent years, are very likely to get there, I think. So when we look at this as a total package, I think that as a player, what you're going to get out of the TACP TLP is this. You're going to get classic EQ, bumps and all, right? The good and the bad. You're going to get a very, very stable, consistent, low drama, high quality developer base that is going to keep the server smooth and without major issues pretty much from the outset until the conclusion. These are very much background guys who like to avoid the spotlight. And I assume because it's an emulator, it's going to be free. So pretty much they're doing all of this because they're passionate EQ players themselves. You're going to have a server with raid rotations. So content will be accessible, but there will not be instances except Plane of Time all the way at the end. In fact, I think even Plane of Time is not truly instanced. There's a quasi-instancing system as it existed originally when it came out. And so it means the economy will be healthy. It won't be flooded. One of the downsides of having incredibly fast respawns to accommodate with the population is that you have tons of loot of every sort because mobs are more available. And that's good, but it also means things feel less impactful, right? That Rubicite breastplate, well, it's just the 800th Rubicite breastplate on the server because it drops every 10 minutes. And that doesn't feel good. Even though you finally got the item you wanted, it feels better when there's a limited supply. But it does have a real play nice policy, and the TACP player base has always been pretty upstanding, and they've done a really good job of managing that over the years. So I expect this server to be kind of like a casual paradise. And when I say casual, I don't mean that it's easy, just that the people are nice. And if you want to take your time and sink your teeth in to the full breadth of what old EQ was, this is the server to do it in. That's what I think. So this will be a short episode. I just wanted to talk about it. This hopefully for most of you will be the first you've heard of it. Happy to bring the news. And I think it's going to be super great. If you have any more questions, jump into our Discord here, which is linked in the description, and ask some questions. I think the server itself will be using the old TACP Discord. Personally, if it were me, I'd spin up a new one for this server because I think it's going to get a ton of interest. If Project Quorum was any indication, they've got like 20,000 people in that Discord. I mean that literally, by the way, 20,000, like 20,000 people in that Discord. I wouldn't want to flood the relatively tame TACP Discord with that many people, but for right now, the plan is to continue using that. So if you want more details on this, you should be looking at the TACP forums and the TACP official Discord. And TACP, of course, stands for the Alcabor Project. And the lead dev of this, I think, is Rob Regan. Maybe I'm saying this wrong. Rob Regan and L. Ross. Those are the two people whose names I see the most. I got permission to talk about this, but I think it will be officially announced and posted tomorrow. Anyway, I'll be there in a very casual sense, and I hope to see a lot of you there too. Zaide out.